Hey dreamers, this is Jade. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am here to continue on with my journey through the One Piece anime and documenting it in my One Piece media journal. And so where we left off last time was in Thriller Bark. We are going back in to continue on trying to complete our mission and get our shadows back, etc., etc., and defeating Moria. So we've gone back in and they have entered the room with Perona. And Perona has these ghosts, these negative ghosts, that if they pass through you, they basically incapacitate you and make you feel worthless and everything like that. So she has dispatched her ghosts on Zoro, Sanji, and Franky. And they are just feel like dog crap. Okay, they're like, I'm worthless, I'm this, I'm that, and blah blah blah. However, her ghosts do not work on Usopp because he is a naturally pessimistic person, and so he breaks them out of their stupor, and he allows them to go ahead and continue on with their mission while he takes on Perona. So Oars, with Luffy's shadow inside of him, is still out there rampaging all around Thriller Bark. So Absalom dispatches his generals to go and try to rein him in. However, so that basically leaves him there in the chapel alone with just a couple people and a unconscious Nami trying to marry her. And Sanji comes in, busts in, and he's ready to kick his ass, okay? Because Sanji is not having it, especially about Nami and Robin. So Usopp is still after Perona. After she figures out that her negative hollows do not affect Usopp, she runs away. And he runs after her, of course. He is still scared, but he decides he's going to do what he needs to do. And he's looking for her everywhere. And then there's a whole lot of shenanigans going on with them. But he figures out that she has to be a ghost. Like, her body has to be somewhere because she is I can't, the word is not coming to me, like reflecting herself as a ghost, though. Projecting, there it is. Projecting herself as a ghost. So he's like, her body has to be somewhere around here, and I need to find it. And so he finds it. He brings Sniper King back out to give himself a boost of confidence here. And he eventually ends up defeating Perona, which is like, there you go, Usopp. I knew you could do it. So yeah, absolutely love that. And then continuing on, Sanji is still fighting Absalom, and Oars is finally coming to the end of his rampage. He has basically fully been taken over by Moria, and he returns to Moria. So kind of Luffy's personality is pretty much gone out of him. So no more rampaging around Thriller Bark. He's ready for his orders. Meanwhile, we have Zoro and Franky, who encounters Brook. Brook is facing off against Ryuma, who is an ancient samurai warrior from the land of Wano. He is like one of the greatest swordsmen in the history of Wano country and probably the world or whatever. Very famous. Anyway, Ryuma actually has Brook's shadow. So that's why Brook has been coming back, trying to get his shadow back or whatever. So he's facing off against him, and he is flagging, okay? So Zoro basically interferes at the right time, and Zoro basically takes on his fight for him. And so it's just Zoro and Ryuma, both of these prolific swordsmen facing off against each other. Probably one of my favorite moments in all of Thriller Bark. These two are going at it. I mean, they are tearing the building up. The roof is collapsing. They are fighting on the roof. And Zoro has said that if he wins, he wants that sword that Ryuma is using, because I think something happened to one of his other swords or whatever. Anyway, no matter. He wants the sword. Eventually, he ends up defeating Ryuma. And Ryuma was like, respect. Dropped that sword down to him, and he was defeated. Brook got his shadow back, yay! And Zoro has won the sword Sushui, yes. Anyway, Chopper and Robin are confronting Dr. Hogback for all the stuff that he's done. And Chopper is, poor baby, he don't meet your heroes, okay? But in the middle of confronting Hogback, they are interrupted by Sanji and Zoro's zombies that are coming after them, because of course they are being controlled by Moria and Hogback, and etc, etc. And so they're like, what in the world are we gonna do? Because while they no longer have the residual personalities of Sanji and Zoro, they do still have their fighting abilities. And so yeah, anyway, Robin, of course, she is smart, love her, and she ends up tricking them into diving out of the building. And so they don't have to worry about them right now. Now that Oars is under Moria's control, he has been tasked with taking out the Strawhats, and so he sees Chopper and Usopp. He starts going after them first. Meanwhile, Perona is like, okay, I'm done. I'm getting out of here. I don't want any more of this. After after Usopp has defeated her, she's like, I'm getting out of here. But she intends to use the Straw Hat ship to do it. And she tries to gather all the treasure and everything like that. Anyway, she's interrupted. And while all this is going on, Lola, who was wanting to marry Absalom herself, comes in and basically helps Nami out, rescues her, understands that she is not down with this, doesn't want to be there, because Sanji had taken off once he found out that Oars was coming after Usopp and Chopper and trying to basically rescue them and get them out of harm's way, because Oars is huge and big and whatever, and he is not here for it. And so he ends up having to abandon his fight with Absalom to deal with the bigger threat. And so yeah, Nami is, as I said, rescued by Lola for the wind, and she takes off and then realizes that Perona is trying to take their boat and get out of there. And at the same time, Kuma shows up, and she's like, who is this guy? And he is basically one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and he is there to have a chat with Moria about one of the warlords had gotten defeated or something, or had lost their position. I can't remember who at the moment, but yeah, he was there to have a chat with him. But meanwhile, he was interrupting whatever Perona was doing, and he ends up swiping at her, and she just disappears. She's gone. So we don't know what happened to Perona or whatever, but she is gone. She is out of play, and so we are continuing on with the story. So the Straw Hats minus Luffy have teamed up to try to take on Oars, because he is huge and he needs to be taken down. And of course, as I said, Oars has been taken over by Luffy's shadow. Luffy, in the meantime, is still after Moria. He is somewhere in the woods or whatever, searching for Moria, and he's being tricked because Moria keeps using his own shadow to trick Luffy about where he is and his position and everything like that. So meanwhile, while he is in the woods and everybody is taking on Oars, Luffy meets the killing pirates in the middle of the woods, and they basically stuff him full of shadows. Every shadow that the Straw Hats were able to release but didn't have a home or body to go back to, they collected and were able to stuff Luffy with those extra shadows to make him huge and big and whatever, producing Nghtmare Luffy. Now, the crew has been taking on Oars. They have managed to basically bring him down a few times. However, at the moment, only Usopp, Zoro, and Nami are still standing from the rest of the crew, because Moria has actually shown up. He is finally here and present, and he is basically in the belly of Oars, controlling everything that's going on. And so Zoro gets knocked out, leaving only Usopp and Nami, and so Oars is going after them, and thankfully at the exact right moment, enter Nghtmare Luffy. He comes in to save his crew and keep them from getting slaughtered by Oars and take on Moria finally. Nghtmare Luffy manages to bring Oars down, however, he ends up recovering. But while he's recovering, also the rest of the Straw Hats recovered. So they actually are able to end up working together to finally bring Big Oars down for real, for real. Now, that doesn't stop Moria, though, because he still can control everything, can still steal people's shadows and everything like that. And so he begins sucking up all of these shadows and whatnot. Because after that last push to get Oars down, Luffy is spent as far as the shadows that he was able to be infused with. They abandoned him or whatever. But Moria sucks up all those shadows, and any other shadows that he can get, and becomes this huge person. But however, Luffy recovers, and he gives it one last push and finally ends up defeating Moria, which is great. However, and everybody thinks everything's great. Everybody's going to get their shadows back now. The sun is almost up. People are like, what is going on? They're starting to burn. You see, like Zoro, Robin, whoever had their shadows taken, you see them starting to fade away and burn away in the sun. And they're like, what in the hell is going on here? And so, but finally, the shadows come back to everybody. Everybody is recovered and everything. Well, not recovered. Luffy is passed out. he is done. Okay, he has done what he needed to do, but he is spent, and he's in a lot of pain and everything like that. And so, yeah, everybody is celebrating, but then Kuma enters, and they're like, "What in the hell? What is going on now?" And he starts taking on everybody. He has this thing called the pawpaw fruit that I don't even know how to explain this power here, but it's like he can send compressed air out of his hand to defeat people or whatever like that. And so he sends these shock waves through everything that's going on. Like, oh god, after everything that's gone on, we have to take on this guy too. And Kuma is like damn near impossible to defeat. And so he is there because he has been instructed to basically take on the Strawhats and get Luffy's head or whatever. And so Luffy, as I said, he's passed out or whatever, and the Straw Hat's like, nah, I can't do that. But Zoro steps up, vice captain, first mate. He's like, listen, I can't let you take my captain. I can't let you do it. If you need to take somebody's head, you can take mine, because he loves Luffy and he believes in his dream of becoming king of the pirates. And so yeah. Then Sanji steps in and is like, hold up, but what about your dream of becoming the greatest swordsman? He's like, if you need to take anybody's head, you can take mine. And this is crazy. See, Zoro will sacrifice himself because he feels like it's his duty to protect his crew. Sanji will sacrifice himself because he feels like he's not worth anything. And I don't like it. I don't like it. However, Zoro is like, this is not happening. He knocks Sanji out, gets him out of the way. And Kuma is like, okay, I'm going to take all the pain from your captain right now. And if you can take the pain, his pain will probably kill you. If you can take his pain, then that's fine. I will leave him alone, and you'll just have to take his pain or whatever. And Zoro is like, can I use my arms? And that just makes total sense to me, because of course he's a swordsman. His arms are probably his strongest feature or whatever. And so he takes Luffy's pain, and later on, we see Sanji get up from being knocked out, and he goes looking for Zoro. That's the first thing he does, and he finds him, and he's like, what the hell happened? What is all this blood from, or whatever? And Zoro just tells him what happened here, nothing at all. And that is one of the most iconic moments in all of One Piece. So just love it, love it, love it. It's one of my favorites. Love the Thriller Bark. It's one of my favorite arcs. And then we'll wrap up Thriller Bark with the celebrations and stuff like that. And so we are moving on to that part, and we'll go from Thriller Bark, and then we'll finally get into Sabaody. Love Sabaody too, because it is good, but it's also very, very heartbreaking. And so yeah, everybody is basically in celebration mode, because everybody has their shadows back, everybody's happy. We have defeated Moria, and everything that went on in Thriller Bark, as I said, it was like a Scooby-Doo episode. It was crazy. And so here we have Luffy. His pain is gone because Moria took his pain out and Zoro took it for him or whatever. So Zoro is laid out, and nobody knows what happened to Zoro except a few people that were watching it, and they were told not to tell anybody, because how would Luffy feel if he knew that his vice captain took his pain from God, can I tell? Took his pain for him or whatever. So he is instructed not to tell anybody what happened between Kuma and Zoro. So after being defeated by Luffy and his crew, Moria and his gang have gone. They are leaving Thriller Bark and escaping. And meanwhile, we have Luffy and Brook having a moment together. As you know, Luffy had already asked Brook to join the crew, and Brook had the whole issue with the shadow. He was like, I really can't do that because I can't go out in the sun, yada yada yada. But now that everybody has their shadows back, Brook can do that. And so they start reminiscing, and Luffy explains to Brook how they actually encountered Laboon, his friend, at the beginning of the Grand Line, and how he was doing and everything like that. And Brook was just so grateful and thankful to have news about Laboon, that he does go into the history of Laboon and how he ended up with his crew. And Laboon was his little baby, and I think he got separated from his family, and he started following the boat that Brook was on. I think they are called the Rumbar pirates. He started following them. Now most of the Rumbar pirates are musicians. So it was like pretty much a pirate ship full of musicians. And they just love to sing and have a good time and everything like that. And Laboon was all for it. So he, as a baby, would just follow them wherever they went. And he basically followed them to the Grand Line. But once they got to the Grand Line, they basically had to, I wouldn't say bribe, but they had to convince him or cajole him to stay where he was at, because he was still a baby, and it was like, there's no way that you could survive here in the Grand Line. So they promised Laboon once they were finished traveling the Grand Line that they would come back for him. However, the fate of the Rumbar pirates was not very good. They ended up very ill, very sick. Pretty much everybody died. However, at some point, Brook ended up eating the revive fruit. So even though he passed away, and he even down to bones, he's just bones now, he ended up reviving, and he was the only one left on his ship, still alive. And then the whole thing with Thriller Bark happened with him, and so he really couldn't go anywhere and do anything unless he was in shadow. And so he was pretty much stuck in limbo right there. But now, having his shadow, encountering Luffy and his crew, he has been freed, and he is free to join the Straw Hat Pirates on their adventures, and he is very thankful and very grateful. So he definitely agrees to become a new crew member of the Straw Hats. And I love Brook. Okay, he is so funny. He is hilarious. So their next destination is supposed to be Fishman Island. The log pose is pointing down. They have no idea how to get here to Fishman Island. And then they encounter this really weird situation where they find this girl almost being eaten by a fish or big fish, whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was. However, Luffy rescues her and the starfish that was with her, called Papagoo. That's her friend or whatever. And turns out that the fish is a mermaid, so you know Sanji is going crazy. He is a fool. So they do take on the flying fish riders to help rescue her friend Hachi. And Hachi, as you remember, was introduced long time ago during Arlong Park, which is basically Nami's backstory. He was part of that whole crew or whatever. But anyway, so moving on, they decide to do that. But then they, the head guy of the Flying Fish Riders, his name is Duval, and he in particular has a problem with the Straw Hats. Sanji specifically, because he, remember Sanji's wanted poster that he was so upset about because they did not take a picture of him. They just had this really weird drawing. Well, turns out that the guy that the drawing looks like is this guy named Duval, and he is pissed because he was this kind of small time guy going around doing his thing or whatever, until he got pinned with being Blackleg Sanji from the Straw Hat Pirates and being basically chased all over the place or whatever, and he didn't like it. So now he's pissed at Sanji and he wants revenge. But you know, Sanji is Sanji, and Sanji beat the brakes off this dude with his feet. Of course he did. And then too, he has this, I have to say that he has this like bull thing, whatever. It's like an animal that he rides, and this animal was about to go for Luffy. Like, he controls it. This animal was about to go. God, can I talk? This animal was about to go for Luffy, and Luffy did something. I don't even know. He did something, and that bull just was like, okay, nah, I'm good, or whatever. And so this is the introduction of Haki. To me, this is the first time that I've really seen it in action from Luffy. And we'll learn more about Haki as the story progresses or whatever. So, anyway, Sanji basically beats up Duval, and after he beats him up, Duval has a completely new face, and it's actually a very nice face. And Sanji is notorious for doing this, because he did this on Water 7 too, on this train when he was fighting that guy. Oh, I can't remember his name, but he was the cook guy or whatever, and he kicked that guy so hard, and he gave him a whole new face, but it was a pretty face. So Hachi, Cammy, and Papagoo lead them to Sabaody, where they need to go to have their ship sealed so they can go down to the bottom of the ocean. They meet Shaki at her little bar, and they are waiting on the guy that can help them seal the ship. I can't remember exactly what they need to do to the ship, but I think it's like they have to coat it or seal it or something. Anyway, in the meantime, they go. God, can I talk? They go off to Sabaody Park to play and everything like that. And Hachi is like Cammy, you probably don't need to do that because people will probably be after you and everything like that. But they go anyway. She's like, Luffy will protect me. Yeah. She ends up getting kidnapped. And they're going to sell her at the slave market in town. And once they find this out, once the people, all the Straw Hat crew finds this out, they're like, okay, Avengers assemble, basically. And so they all hop a ride with the Fishman flying riders or whatever, and they head to the auction house. We have the Straw Hats coming from all different directions because they all went off in different directions. Of course, Zoro went somewhere and got lost. Everybody else, Brook, Robin, Chopper, everybody. So they're all flying over to this auction house to rescue Cammy. Now the whole thing about Sabaody is they have these people there called celestial dragons, and they are supposed to be these basically blue bloods, hoity-toity people that you're not supposed to do anything to, because Hachi warned them not to like disrespect them or hit them or anything like that, otherwise you could die, lose your life and whatnot. However, going to this auction house, they are going to wreck shop, and Luffy does not give a damn. Okay, so they find their first plan is to pay for Cammy, just to buy her back. But of course, a celestial dragon comes in there and gives some astronomical amount of money, and they don't have the money to cover that or whatever. So they are not going to be able to purchase Cammy back. And so Luffy finally arrives with Zoro in tow, and not all of the Straw Hats is still there yet, but they're at the auction house. They're gathering, and then Hachi is doing something. I can't remember what it is, but he ends up getting hit and beat up by one of the celestial dragons. And y'all know Luffy is not having it. Once he declares that you are his friend, it's over for whoever messes with the friend. Okay, so even though he's been warned, do not hit or anything one of these celestial dragons, no, he does. He goes and punches the celestial dragon in the face. And when I tell you he came back with it, like y'all remember Angela Bassett in that movie, what's the one? Waiting to Exhale, where she came way back and hit that woman. Okay, that's the kind of punch he gave this dude or whatever. So it's on from here, okay? It's a battle from here, and they are just fighting. It's basically chaos and mayhem. And then we have this guy come out. This guy comes out from the back, and he had got himself captured to be auctioned off as a slave, but he ends up rescuing Cammy, and he somehow ends up flattening everybody in there or whatever, using again haki. We'll get more into that. And so this guy happens to be Dark King Rayleigh, and I will tell you who he is in the next time that we come. But he does rescue Cammy, but then now it's on between the people and the Marines, because the Marines are basically protect these celestial dragons and stuff like that. So that is pretty much where we end off here in this. If you have any comments or questions, please leave those below. Trust you all have been safe and well, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.